Hi, I'm Rosemary Jean Thompson, and welcome to this edition of UBC's Next Big Thing. With me is Kathy Robinson. She's an instructor in the School of Nursing here and the author of a book called A Melody of Hope. And it's stories focusing on the topic of eating disorders. And I think as a mom, that catches my ear every time I hear it, because if you see a child that is dealing with this, it just breaks your heart. So talk a little bit about this information you have, the research you've been doing around eating disorders.
Yes, it was a long time in coming. Not only am I a pediatric nurse that deals with children with eating disorders, but I'm a mom who had a daughter that suffered with an eating disorder. And part of my research as a nursing instructor is to look at eating disorders. As a mother that suffered through the journey with my daughter in her eating disorder, I realized I was quite alone. I felt quite isolated. And it wasn't a feeling I liked. I just didn't feel that there was enough support. And when my daughter recovered, one of the things I realized is that if I had read stories or had information from other people, other families who'd had a daughter that had gone through this and recovered, I would have had a lot more hope that my daughter could recover instead of feeling like I was in the bottom of a pit. So I wrote my own story, more as a researcher to publish. And when I'd completed it and got a few people to read it, they said, "That is amazing, you should publish that." And then I thought, well, why not hear from other mothers? So I put out a call and received the most amazing stories from families who had gone through this and whose daughters had recovered. And it was just stories of hope, encouragement, advice, that what they did that worked.
Wow.
So I compiled the stories and published them as a way of giving parents just beginning their painful family journey some hope that they can hang on, that they can get through this.
Now, where did your journey begin with this? Because did the research come first? Did the illness with your daughter come first?
It was really my daughter's illness. Although I'd spent many years caring for children in the hospital with eating disorders, it wasn't my passion, it wasn't something I understood well, and really at that time had no desire to know it really well. But when my daughter suffered her eating disorder, I was forced to look at it. I was forced to think, why did she get this? Was this something I caused? Did I do this? Was I a terrible mother?
I can see that being just natural responses
Yes.
from a mother. How old was she?
She was 17,
Okay.
and she went into treatment at age 18 and recovered very well.
What are the signs of this disorder or illness, and what happened in your case?
There's a lot of different signs and symptoms depending on whether they have anorexia nervosa or bulimia nervosa. So bulimia nervosa is where they purge. So they eat enormous amounts of food very quickly and then usually go into a bathroom and purge it. So they don't always show a lot of weight loss because they are consuming a lot of calories. However, those with anorexia nervosa do become very, very thin.
And they just stop eating.
They stop eating. Yes, and that's where I noticed my daughter. It was in her grade 12 year, she was 17, and I noticed she was losing weight, but I thought she just wanted to lose weight so she would look really, really super good in her grad dress.
Yes, as many girls
As
desire.
many girls do.
Right.
And so I didn't pay much attention to it until about April, just before her graduation. She walked by me and I noticed that she was incredibly thin, and I started to worry.
So what's incredibly thin? Because
I could see her bones, her hip bones.
Okay.
But she was wearing bulky clothes all the time, so it was hard to notice, which is very classic of girls with an eating disorder. Will wear baggy, thick clothes and many sweaters so people don't notice how thin they are.
So once you noticed that she was getting thin and you could see her bones, what did you do next?
I didn't want to confront her, but you need to confront. And of course, most of these kids will deny that they have an eating disorder or that they are purging. So you need to be firm. So I just called her into the kitchen and I said, sit down and listen. I said, you have been losing a lot of weight. I've noticed it. Don't deny it. It's true. We need to get you help. And that confrontation done in love, she accepted and she started to cry.
Wow.
And we immediately booked an appointment with the doctor. She needed a full, health exam and vital signs and blood work, a plan. We also wanted to get her into a treatment program. We also looked at support groups for families and children who have eating disorders. So she needed nutrition counseling. There's a lot of things that go into place in order to ensure successful recovery of children with eating disorders.
So it sounds like you took her to the doctor pretty quick.
Very
Got her
quickly
on
the
that.
next day.
And how important is it for the family to get this support?
That is key, and that was one of the things I noticed that I didn't have. I felt very isolated. It's still a stigma in society that eating disorders are due to parenting mistakes, controlling mothers, those kinds of things. And so I was afraid to talk about it. I thought because I was a pediatric nurse, I could fix her myself and follow the protocols from the hospital, and I couldn't. And the more I isolated, the worse my daughter got. So one of the things that is key is for families to not isolate and be supported and not blamed and not made to feel that they did something wrong, but to also have counseling, to also have support, not just their child, because if the family heals, the child will heal, and if they're in it together, and that's the key component.
That is really good advice, and really one of the reasons you wrote this book.
Yes, absolutely.
To help families.
Yes.
What's the next big thing with your research? Where are you going from here?
Well, I'm just starting my dissertation for my PhD, and one of the things I'm looking at is implementing more support groups and care for families who have a child with an eating disorder, because as I've said, I believe one of the key components to healing is to have a healed and solid, cohesive family that feels supported. And that's one of the things I want to look at, is getting doctors, hospitals, eating disorder treatment centers all on board with supporting the family just as they support the child to ensure long-term recovery.
That's excellent. And you know what? I know we could talk for hours, and I will definitely be asking you back to find out more about this disorder, disease, and so that we can help families here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. That wraps it up for this edition. We'll see you next time. Kathy Robinson's A Melody of Hope is available at Amazon.com and chaptersindigo.ca.